Hi everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fragrant Bunker. Today we're going to do the top 5 Chanel perfumes for the month of November. Check this background out that I've prompted my AI bubbles to generate. I really wanted a beautiful Highlands Scottish background. Now, Coco Chanel had a big love affair with Scotland and with some Scottish men, allegedly. So she also really, really loved the landscapes. And I thought to myself, well, I don't know why I have this longing for Scotland, for the Highlands. But I thought to connect the two, Coco's love affair with Scotland, my dreams of the Highlands and cliffs in the Highlands and distant views of the water. Almost, I wanted this kind of painting vibe, and I wanted to connect the two for November while delivering a landscape that has that burning soul and heart of Scottish pride and culture, right? Look at that color and that flaming sun in the back. It lights the whole landscape on fire almost. And then we have that promise of cooling, relaxing colors and temperatures. And then when the sun sets, everything will be more cool, more toned down. Cold, the winds will blow over these landscapes like there's no hope almost. There's no place to hide, except somewhere there in the distance we have a little cottage made out of stones and we are brewing coffee. Coco also loved her coffee. So there's like a connection of sorts, it's an emotional journey, right? So November, harvest season is basically over, or we are kind of towards the end of the harvest season and winter is upon us. But one last time we get to see those rays of sun, right? As the days become shorter and shorter and the darkness seeps into our day. So the daytime is shorter. Like I think, depending which part of the world you're in, but 3:30 p.m., 4 p.m. is when it's already dark outside. So I want to say this is somewhere around maybe 2:30 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And I mean, we don't know if the horizon is on fire or if it's just an optical illusion of the sun setting. So we're fearing something. Something might happen. This fire might spread all across the lands. Or maybe it's no fire at all. It was just the figment of our imagination, and we are imagining things, and reality is playing tricks on us. Our minds are playing tricks on us. So what is this video about? Perfumes or landscapes? Well, that too can be a mind game. We don't know, really. We never really know. It's all an abstraction. It's all a dream. So today, subscribe to my dreamy channel, thumb up this video, and let me show you my first Chanel perfume that I've chosen this year in 2024 for the month of November. There it is, 31 Rue Cambon. Now, I always wished since 2006/2007 when the Eau de Toilettes came out, I always wished secretly that Chanel would release this one as an extrait. Who knows, they might. Although I gotta say that the Eau de Toilette back in the day was super powerful and strong. I mean, I don't really know how an extrait would do this one justice. I do have here the Eau de Toilette. Look how it's changed color throughout the years. It's become very, very ambery. Sorry, it's like, there you go. I'll have to put it next. Oh, this is, okay. There you go. That color doesn't look much like this color here, but that's because it starts off relatively light, and this is a photo of the Eau de Parfum, but this is the Eau de Toilette. Now, I like both, but the Eau de Toilette in its older formulation, and I have batch code 7201 here. Batch code numbers repeat every 8 to 9 years, by the way. Oh, man. I mean, this is literally the color that we have here in this landscape. It's somewhere there. The tonality of this one, it just kind of lands somewhere there in the fire. And Matter of fact, I have I've often had this dream of living in the Highlands. Can you believe? And I've never really been to the Highlands, but I have this longing for the Highlands. I have for Scotland and the humidity and the rain. It doesn't matter. It doesn't scare me at all. I feel like my soul belongs there somehow. And the dreams that I have are usually me in some little stone house or cottage, um, surrounded by like this sort of landscape that you see, like very, very, very distant landscape, no hills. But then at a certain point, it's cut off abruptly like a cliff here. And then there's water. And the grass always kind of sways in the wind in either direction, those kind of longer grass growing plants that just kind of bend with the wind. And you hear that, as the wind is going through them. And I know this is more adjacent to Irish folklore. The Irish invented Halloween, after all. But there is a whistling sound that the wind makes. Now, usually it's in Ireland when they made these wooden stones or like little walls out of, not wooden, sorry, stones, walls out of stones. Oh my gosh, wooden stones. Cuckoo. And they would, in the landscape, they would build these walls to prevent the wind from kind of just, taking off the ground everything that is there. Kind of like the wind would bump into them, it would kind of fly over and keep floating a little bit less strongly. So this was, the idea is to protect the landscape a little bit from corrosion of the elements of nature. But by creating these walls, the way that sometimes, depending at what angle the wind hits these stone walls and slithers its way above them or through the cracks between the rocks and the stones, that sound is terrifying. Okay, so much so that that particular sound has contributed to the creation of the mythology of banshees. Because it is said mythologically that banshees have that screechy, screaming, almost howling, but it's more like a really like thin vocal cords that kind of just scream without stopping. And that is the effect of the wind at a certain angle and at a certain power and speed, kind of whistling through the rocks. And even though that is more Irish and not Scottish, I still envision in my dreams sometimes that happens to me in my dreams while I am in this little cottage in the middle of nowhere in the Highlands in Scotland. And instead of being terrified of that sound and of the banshees, I welcome them. And somehow I always envision myself wearing 31 Rue Cambon as the banshees come to visit, because this is the warmest of Chanel fragrances for colder months, in a way, from the Les Exclusifs range at least. And I'm saying this because the way that Jacques Polge and Christopher Sheldrake worked on this and developed it, they called it 31 Rue Cambon because it represents the haute couture address of Chanel. So this is the highest level of kind of fashion artistry that the Maison Chanel can deliver, or they claim that's the highest that they can deliver. So they developed a perfume that resembles that sublime perfection, right? Like a hand-woven tweed with every single bead or sequin or material, whether it be a silk, whether it be a particular type of cashmere, whether it be a feather, it's all applied by hand. And so whatever this textile is that comes out in the end, an haute couture textile, it is so grand and majestic that you just are in awe when you see it. So this perfume is supposed to smell that way, kind of mimicking that tapestry, that very complex interwoven textile that is handmade, hand embroidered, hand stitched, hand sewn. And so when the banshees come to visit, I am wearing 31 Rue Cambon and I am completely prepared for them, almost respecting them, you know? I'm not running away from them. I'm not like all messy and looking like total shit. So, but when they arrive, they see me, they go, "Oh," and I welcome them, right? And I say, "I've only worn the best for you ladies. And tell me, what are your sorrows? What troubles you? Because nothing troubles me. I am here just living in peace, solitary life." And then they open up. And instead of screaming, although that's all they can do, they're in a way, they're cursed, and all they can do is scream. But if you learn how to listen, in between those screams, you hear noises and voices and letters forming into words, and before you know it, you hear them talking. Even though they're screaming, you start hearing their stories. And that's how this story begins. On a cliffside, somewhere in the highlands, as the sun is setting in November, and banshees come to visit me, while I am wearing 31 Rue Cambon, which is a gorgeous chypre, a modern type of chypre with labdanum, with patchouli, with incense, with floral accords, bergamot in the opening. Um, there's a sweetness to this, but also a dryness to it. The aldehydes sparkle, but they are cold like the winds in the highlands. But something inside of this perfume also burns like fire. But then it's cool. It's a cool fire. It's a mystical fire. It's a fire that almost burns blue instead of red. And when that fire is lit and it burns blue, it almost functions as a filter that filters out the screams of the banshees, and you can understand distinctly what they are saying. And the banshees start talking. And as they start talking, a second perfume reveals itself. Here we have Coco, an 80s formulation, or an 80s creation rather. It was first released in the second half of the 80s. The nose behind Coco Mademoiselle, not Coco Mademoiselle, just Coco, is Jacques Polge. And I've chosen the Eau de Parfum for November. There is something special about Coco because it is a banshee perfume in a way. And you have to understand its language and what it really has to say. So it's almost as if this perfume reveals itself in front of a blue, cold flame. And once it reveals itself, and once that flame filters through the screaming, Coco starts to talk. She starts to talk about solitude, isolation, extreme fear of loneliness, being alone, ending up being alone for all eternity, because dying is just one short first step towards something much vaster, grander, bigger, something that we have even less control over than the control we think we're trying to run after during our lifetimes, as we are trying to control our lives and the progression of our lives and how life hits us and all the situations that happen. Well, turns out that after we pass away, the banshee tells me there's much more. There's more solitude to be had, more loneliness, more isolation. And we find out that that screaming is a warning, is a heeding sound. It's almost the banshee's telling us, beware, play your cards right. Live with your emotions very close to the surface, as close as possible. As Jenna Rollins would say in Opening Night, a movie by John Cassavetes, and the movie opens this way. She says, she's one of my favorite banshees, and may she rest in peace. She just passed away this year, unfortunately, but she lived a long and happy life. She said, when I was younger, my emotions were so close to the surface. I could feel them at any time. I was always in touch with my emotions. Now, the older I get, the deeper they are, and the more difficult it becomes to tap into them, to get in touch with them. It's like they're buried under mountains and mountains of rocks and debris. I've added a lot more text to this. Her quote is much shorter, but that's the gist. And this banshee's warning me of that, telling me, telling all of us really, keep those emotions close to the surface. Do not lose your childish naivety. Your emotions need to be pure. Don't fool yourself into thinking that by burying your emotions, you are more compatible with society, that you are more prone to growing within your career, whatever that career may be. Always remember to tap into your truth and your emotions. Keep them close to the surface. Coco is an interesting example of that because it's a very bold 80s perfume that has big shoulder pads, you know. It's a powerhouse 80s fragrance. It's an amber accord done the Chanel way. So we do have the sparkly aldehydes in the opening, and we do have that famous, or rather infamous, Chanel rose hiding in the heart of this fragrance. But then we also have the clove. We have a synthetic civet. We have um, a smidge of incense. We have patchouli in there. There's also jasmine. But this is what used to be called an oriental, now no longer a word used in perfumery, so people call it an amber. I really, amber, quite limiting in my opinion, especially for perfume of this stature. So I would classify, if I would have to change completely, and I would gladly change it because, to be perfectly honest with you, I also think oriental is limiting as a definition, uh, especially when it comes to cocoa. I would classify this as a Byzantine, as a Byzance perfume with a heart of Renaissance hiding within it, and a Baroque root, grassroots movement. There's something very Caravaggio about this one. And it fits in this landscape because this landscape is all about brutal nature, nature that doesn't have a heart, nature that has no emotions. But it is powerful and it can be degrading, but without any morality. It's not like, oh, it's degrading you, you're losing your humanity. No, it's just showing you you're nothing. Everything is nothing. And so this perfume, what does everything is nothing mean? It means that you're here for a very limited amount of time and you can be gone like that. And once you're gone, it's over. The banshee's warning us that there's something after we're gone, but the physical aspect of our bodies is present for a short amount of time on planet Earth. And that amount of time, in the grand scheme of things, in comparison with how long the universe has existed and how long planet Earth has existed, this is not even a fraction of a second, or of a nanosecond, compared to the vastness of time in the universe and the silence in the universe. So Coco, even though it has these shoulder pads, it represents, I should say, Coco Chanel, the perfume, with its grand shoulder pads, represents nature in this state. The brutality of it, the vastness of it, the intense, aggressive nature of it. And then there's that rose at its heart. It's a very cold rose. It's not your typical warm, sensual rose. This rose, it's almost made of stone. It's hardened in a way. It's a very interesting perfume. It mimics warmth, but it's a cold-hearted player. It knows how to play the Game of Thrones. This is a perfume that Caterina de' Medici would have worn. Now, Catherine de' Medici, or de' Medici, like some people would like to say, but it is Medici in Italian, the correct pronunciation. I have just finished watching season 2 of The Serpent Queen. Oh my God. I think in terms of shows that not, are that are not fully historically accurate, but in some parts they are. From all of the shows that I've watched in the past 10 or 20 years that are depicting historical characters from the far past, this one takes the cake as the best one for me. I mean, I've watched, unfortunately, they've canceled the show after season 2. Of course, all good things get canceled, and the best of things rarely get a chance at a second season. And I was thrilled that this show got a second season, and it did not disappoint. But the Serpent Queen, had she lived in the time of Chanel, she would have worn this perfume, right? Had she lived in the 80s, she would have worn this perfume. Coco is Caterina de' Medici. Fully cold-hearted, calculating, with a huge passion burning inside. But there's that rock character surrounding it, impenetrable. The shoulder pads are humongous. This is a beast. But it's hiding underneath a veneer of pleasantries, solitude. This one doesn't scream, shout at you, yell at you. This one, in fact, after we've seen it in front of the blue flame, the screams of the banshees subside. And she's talking normally to us, actually almost whispering. Quite the opposite of what we think a banshee does. If we know how to look through the right looking glass and focus on, on the true reality and nature of a banshee, we get to actually hear her whisper. And Coco is sublime, and we start realizing, oh, well, maybe that banshee is Caterina de' Medici. After she passed away, she is now with us. She was in France and ruling over France, but her vision was broader. She wanted a unified France. And, Great Britain was also kind of in her vision, although that kingdom was a little bit too big for her to conquer. But nevertheless, I always feel if Caterina de' Medici would have gone to live somewhere in England, she would have maybe chosen some beautiful landscape in the Highlands. So that's Coco. And the banshee starts telling me the story of past glories, isolation, solitude, loss, death of children, of lovers, being betrayed, the betrayal in the courts. And then, just like that, another character appears in the story. A more subtle version, if you may, of deceit. Jersey. I do have here the Eau de Toilette, but I also love the Eau de Parfum as well as the Extrait. The Extrait is the best ever, really. Lavender, 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 lavender. It's a freshness. It's kind of a sober realization that only if we embrace nature in its fullest will we find a path towards redemption or freedom. Freedom of the spirit and of the body. And Jersey really is, in my humble opinion, the only perfume ever made that comes not just so close to the true, pure, natural essence of lavender, but especially in its extrait form, it is the natural essence of lavender. I mean, it's insane how pure lavender-ish it smells. And, oh God, I mean, I gotta listen. Yeah. The beautiful thing about this banshee is that this landscape, it doesn't have that warmth necessary to see fields of lavender grow. And these are fields of lavender from Grasse, the south of France. So you can understand how the Highlands and Scotland, just geographically, we're not in a position, anywhere near a position where the temperature would be warm enough and in a way calm enough for lavender to grow. So, and yet, how do we maintain this essence of lavender in the highlands. We bottle it. And oh man, it's such a fresh scream. It's a banshee's scream, this lavender. And it is bottled and you can carry it with you wherever you want to go. And you have a beautiful, bubbly, sparkling aldehydic opening, almost like crystalline champagne, that then pretty soon calms down and becomes the softest, smoothest, most soothing, comforting lavender. It relaxes you. I mean, it gives me so much peace of mind. It just makes me feel at ease. It makes me feel at home. No matter where I am, if I take Jersey with me, I'm at home. And November is a month where it can be quite rainy, in some areas even very snowy. Northern hemisphere, of course, only, not the southern hemisphere. And it becomes almost November becomes a month where you you have a tendency to become a little bit, I don't want to say like depressed, and I'm not talking about clinical depression, although there is that as well, but just gloomy, moody. The weather kind of doesn't really play in your favor. Days are so short. You don't get your vitamin D because you don't see the sun enough. And when the sun is out, it's usually covered by clouds. So, to counter that form of late autumn depression, you need sunshine. And Jersey is a promise of summer. Those fields of lavender scream of summer in the south of France. It's majestic. There's a smidge of vanilla in there as well. The lavender accord in Jersey. And by the way, Jersey, for those of you who might be asking, like, what does it actually mean? Are we talking about New Jersey? No, we're talking about a textile that Coco Chanel used uh, in the tens and the early 20s, but mostly in the tens. It's a woven, originally used to be, for the most part, cashmere, very thinly woven cashmere garment. It was an undergarment, basically. You know, like tank tops, undershirts, underwear. And then what Coco did is she pushed that to the forefront and turned jersey garments into outerwear and, shirts, sweaters, dresses. Jersey back in the day was so comfortable and warm and breathable. Nowadays, most jersey fabrics are synthetic. But jersey back in Coco's day was a natural fabric, and it was just gorgeous. You can even weave jersey nowadays out of cotton and blend it with other materials. But, if you're going to get one of the OG Coco Chanel creations, jersey creations from 1918, 1920, it's going to be cashmere, most likely. So this perfume blends in so beautifully in this landscape because somewhere there in the distance, as the sun is setting and that last ray of light hits us, we get that little tiny promise of warmth of summer to come, and then it's nighttime. And as the night falls, the sun is gone, and a new perfume appears. The darkest of Chanel bottles. Yes, there's also Coco Noir, which has a black bottle, but that one has a gold, black, white sticker. This one doesn't have a sticker. This has a printed text. Antaeus Powerhouse, an 80s perfume, another 80s fragrance by Jacques Polge. By the way, Jersey Eau de Toilette was also Jacques Polge, one of his last creations for the Chanel Les Exclusifs range before he retired, and then his son Olivier took over. So here we have Antaeus. There it is in its full glory. Beautiful black glass bottle. And by the way, most perfume brands nowadays, they just kind of spray paint or color their glass superficially in a color that they want other than transparent. but not Chanel. If you buy, well, I don't know what they're going to do in the near future because they are cheapening more and more and more their brand, which breaks my heart. By the way, everything I say in this video is for entertainment purposes only, not rooted in truths or facts. Everything's alleged and just my opinion. While you're at it, subscribe. Thumb up the video. It means the world to me. Let's try to get, as many subscribers as we can because that really, really helps the channel grow. Thank you so much. Costs you nothing to subscribe. So thank you for everybody who has subscribed and for your continuous support and love and for leaving all the most wonderful comments down below. It's always really, really, really heartwarming for me to read all of them because they're so thought-provoking and they're not just like short comments like, oh, I love your channel. Like you really write long texts and contemplations and ideas about perfumes and your memory of them and how you've grown to love them. It's amazing and very, very inspiring and also very humbling to read all your comments. So thank you so much for writing them, taking the time to actually spend some time together with me and to write the comments. Thank you, guys. So Antaeus is a dark perfume, and the bottle is black. And so, like I said, most fragrance houses, they kind of spray paint or just paint over a glass bottle in the color that they want the bottle to be. And you can see because you could scratch off the paint, you could chip off the paint, and then underneath the glass is kind of whitish, transparent-ish. This one is black. The glass is black. Okay, if you chip this one, it's black through and through. So it's a beautiful glass bottle, which, I don't take for granted that in this day and age, a brand still does that. So that's cool. 80s Powerhouse perfume from 1981 for men. Now, but for me, perfume knows no gender. But Antaeus is really beautiful this time of year because of its spiciness. It is a very, very spicy perfume. It's been toned down throughout the decades. It's been reformulated. It's no longer that punchy and pungent as it used to be in the 80s, right? Nevertheless, it's still a beauty. The honey accord in it is still wonderful to sniff out. It's not easy to do honey. Honey usually smells quite aggressive and dirty and synthetic in a bad way. Not in Antaeus. It's very, very soothing and beautiful in Antaeus. And then the spices in here, they settle down on the skin. And it's almost like once the night hits in this landscape, in the highlands, we need to light a fire in our little cottage or our cabin. And that's what Antaeus represents. It's that spark. It's that the embers of fire, it's that glow of the embers in the fireplace that they look so deep and intense, and they have a spiciness to them. Like, for example, if we were to cook something in this landscape in our cottage in November, right? It would, a pheasant that we caught in the landscape or a rabbit or something. Yes, people eat meat. So for all the vegans out there, it's like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Okay, well, collect the red beets from the fields or some other roots if you want as well. Doesn't matter. No matter what you cook or bake in that cottage with that naturally started fire, it's going to have a smoky taste to it. If you do polenta, which I love, I love, 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 love polenta, right? So if you're going to kind of do polenta on a fire and kind of spread it out, on wood and let it harden, and then you cut it into pieces, almost like slices of pizza. And then you put some sauce with like a rabbit on top, or if you don't want the rabbit, or hair, not hair, but the animal hair, or just yogurt mixed in with the polenta, and you eat that with that smoky flavor, or some mushrooms that you found in the fields, and it's going to have that smoky, spicy accord that is given to it because of the fire that you've prepared it in. And all the wood and the charcoal, whatever you're using, is going to contribute to the flavor, that smoky flavor of the perfume. And that's what Antaeus has. It has that smoky flavor to it. And it's a beautiful perfume if you know how to dose it correctly and if you know how to wear it correctly. sometimes Antaeus is really good sprayed on clothes rather than on the skin, depending on the day and how humid it is outside. But be careful not to spray it too close to your clothes. It might stain. Spray it at a distance so you get kind of like a more of a mist rather than a little puddle spray. And also avoid maybe spraying it on lighter fabrics. That's what I would say. But you can also spray it on your hair. Spraying it on the hair also does wonders because hair really retains fragrances really long, and it's a beautiful uh, way to preserve the smell of perfumes longer, which coincidentally is one of the reasons why I love having longer hair, because I get to play with perfumes much more and I get to experience them, depending on where you spray them, higher or lower. If you're afraid of the alcohol drying out your hair, then you can spray the perfume on your comb, shake the comb a little bit so the alcohol evaporates, and then the essential oils that are left in the comb, you kind of comb your hair through your hair with a comb, and you get those essential oils on your hair minus the alcohol, or minus almost all of the alcohol. That's Antaeus for you. Beautiful woodsy dry down. Like after we've turned off the fire, we're left with that smoky scent on our skin, and we're ready to go to sleep. But before we go to sleep, there's one more scream, shouted out very loudly, because as the fire is out, there's no more blue flame here, and the banshees are screaming again. They're no longer just whispering to us. But we've learned their language, and now even though they're screaming, we managed to hear the right frequency. We can hear out and filter out the right frequency so that we can hear the right tone through the screaming. And one last perfume appears in the middle of the night. It's a forest. It's on an island. Even though Coco told us in the 20s when it was released, this is a faraway island, it's very exotic, a lot of sandalwood there. Coco never really traveled to exotic places in her life, so the island I'm envisioning here is the island of Great Britain. And the perfume that she released in the 20s is Bois des Iles. Coincidentally, check this out. I have it right here. And I have a brand new batch. Well, it's not it's a sealed batch, but 8201 is the batch code. And I gotta say, I think before they discontinued the extraits, they managed to, I think, manufacture a 9 as well, and then they took them off the market, but I do believe that they're bringing them back now again, maybe beginning of 2025, in new packaging, I've been told, allegedly. So I'm really looking forward to this, and I will be opening this one very soon. I still have a few drops left from my other extrait, but I have kind of stocked up on this one, just to be safe. If they don't bring it back, or if they, for some reason, reformulate it, I'd rather have it safe for me. But I do also have the Eau de Toilette and the Eau de Parfum of Bois des Iles in my hands. So this is an Ernest Beau fragrance. Let's layer it with Jersey. Oh my God. Ah, Ernest Beau. What a master. I don't know what to say. This perfume is so beautiful. So Bois des Iles means forests of the islands, or the Isle forests, or the woods of the islands. And it's about traveling to distant, far places and being in that 20s mood, European mood, where everybody was traveling far distances, like Guerlain releases Shalimar, also the idea of traveling to faraway places. Bois des Iles is no different. In fact, one of the first versions of Bois des Iles came packaged in a very exotic wooden box. So the container for Bois des Îles was not like cardboard like it is now, but it was made out of wood. Except I do believe that deep down in her heart, Coco thought of Scotland when Bois des Îles was released. Man, is this perfume beautiful. It's so misunderstood. Many people don't really like it because it starts off so intense and the aldehydes are really strong in this one, and people are turned off by it because it starts off quite aggressive. Not very pleasing like many perfumes are these days. Many perfumes are just made for the masses to be pleasing, not this one. This one takes its good time before it hits that sandalwood accord. And you might think, well, sandalwood doesn't really grow anywhere near Europe or Great Britain, so it has to have an oriental flair. Yeah, but not this sandalwood. The way that Ernest Beau constructed this sandalwood, it's very European. It's very, very French, but it's also very British. I almost want to say this is kind of something that Penhaligon's could have made together with Chanel, I also always wondered, yes, I mean, Chanel is a French brand, not an English brand, although they've moved their official workforce and everything. By the way, subscribe and thumb up this video. Thank you so much. To England, so they're registered for all tax purposes in England, not in France anymore. So that there's a whole. So it's debatable if Chanel is still a French brand or not. It's kind of like they're using Made in France, to sell more and make the whole world say ooh la la. But then when it comes to actually living by the rules of the tax system in Europe, Chanel is like, no, we prefer after Brexit going to England where we have a better tax deal. Allegedly, so it's a little bit shady what they're doing, in my opinion. But regardless of that, I feel like Bois des Îles is almost a British Chanel perfume. Now, when Coco Chanel was alive, she was very much French. And the company was very much French, so there's that. But Bois des Îles has a British flair about it. Something aristocratic about it. Something noble. So like I was saying earlier, it's not like, Chanel, the brand is rooted in France, so it's not like they have a label on their perfume saying, by appointment to Her Majesty the Queen of England, Mary Elizabeth, number, blah, blah, blah. No, none of that. So when we purchase a Chanel perfume, it is as simple as it gets. And I love the fact that they're just so clean. There's like almost nothing there. They're clinical. These perfume packaging bottles, as well as the boxes, as well as the bottles, are so clinical. And in the best way possible. I mean, look at this. Even the 75 ml bottles, they're lacking emotion, okay? But that's the beauty of it as well, because the emotion is inside the bottle. Even though the aldehydes give these Chanel perfumes always a cold-blooded heart, but in the middle of the night, we realize that these faraway lands are all in our dreams. We dream about them. We sleep and we dream about them. And so we envision like as if we're somewhere far away in our dreams. And Bois des Îles Extrait is on another level of masterpiece, really. The sandalwood in here is a different story than the Eau de Parfum completely, although I do love Eau de Parfum as well. Pardon me, my nose is stuffy. Anyway, here's where we are. You realize you're dreaming. And that's when this perfume is at its most powerful in your dreams. And then as you wake up, the dream is gone. And you've dreamt all of this up. This entire story has been dreamt up. But somehow, you're back in your own room, somewhere in the middle of a big, noisy city, police cars, sirens out all day, all night, loud noises of buildings, construction sites, people listening to the radio or televisions or computers dialed in to some social media platforms that are yelling and shouting, people upstairs fighting, yelling at each other, throwing stuff at each other, and you're back in your own reality and you realize, oh, that was a dream. My Highlands, my Scottish life in the middle of that nature, that was all just a dream. And it's not really happening. I'm not really living there, but I have my banshee friends with me, right? They're all here. They're all, they're all with me. I get to relive those emotions, those visions, that state of being, the solitude, but also the friendship, thanks to the perfumes. And that's, especially for a person living in a city, so important because we tend to lose connection to nature when we live in bigger cities. But nature is so important, and I feel like perfumes are a very interesting link that connect us to nature. They connect us to our roots. Yeah, some of them are very synthetic, and some of these smells are not, typically natural smelling, but the ones that are can really take you back in your mind, in your dreams, to a landscape like this one. And this landscape is generated by AI, but prompted by me, right? I gave the prompt, my vision, my mind, this vision was forming, and giving the right description to the AI, kind of this picture came out. So this landscape doesn't only exist anymore in my dreams. I've tried to describe the landscape from my dreams to the AI, and this is what came out. This is as close as it's ever gotten in visual form to my dream. And thanks to the perfumes, in this case, my 5 Chanel perfumes for the month of November, this time around, I have managed to create for myself a very vivid diary and memory of said dream, with the banshees, with the blue flame, with the sunset and sunrise, with the wind, and with the memory of nature in my heart and in my soul. So that's something I'm going to take with me wherever I go after this life is over. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know your favorite Chanel perfumes for the month of November down below. Subscribe, thumb up this video, and until next time, never forget to never give up on fragrant love. Bye.